I'm Dr. Danite, and this is the Bliss Lab, where we approach life as a delicious experiment. From Tantra to embodiment, from polarity to pleasure, we're here to study bliss, one juicy conversation at a time. Hello, loves. Welcome back to the Bliss Lab. I'm your host, Dr. Danite, and today's episode is one I have been deeply looking forward to. We're diving into something raw, something real and potent. I'm calling it the sacred breakdown. You know, those moments where life all falls apart, everything unravels, and what once was is gone, and what's becoming isn't here yet, and we're kind of feeling that something exciting could be happening, but it's all new. And these moments can come from so many different life situations. It could be a loss, a divorce, a job change, a death. I mean, endless. And so I'm honored to welcome Dina Tibbs to chat this out with me and to get in the Bliss Lab and get curious about this sacred space, this gnarly, beautiful life human experience. And I was guided to Dina, truly guided to Dina for this topic. And we had a quick chat, and I was very clear about what I wanted to get into. And this is a space Dina's very comfortable in through her own life experiences and finding her own way through her own moments of growth and breakdown. And she supports women and people specifically. One of the things that she does is supports women in these moments of transition. And so I'm so grateful to have you here, Dina, to just dive in and get curious with me on this space.
I'm so thrilled. And, one of my soul assignments is curiosity. I dropped in with that. So it's like, that's what I lead with. And that's what I try to live with. And so I'm super excited to see where this
Yeah.
goes.
The curiosity's been a tenet for me through my last breakdown. It was really the curiosity was a lifeline of figuring my way through it. And the other thing we have in common is this truth seeking. I found myself like, I want the truth. Like, I don't like the pain of a lie is just pain, like just denial. It just brings pain. But even if the truth is painful, it has potential. There's truth to it. And so I find myself relentlessly seeking the truth. And I feel that in you too.
Yeah. Oh, indeed. In myself, in others, starting with self, of course.
Mm,
Um, what's really true out in the collective and staying centered in that because of all of the chaos, the sheer
mm,
chaos right now.
yes.
Um, and everybody's truth, of course, is seen through a different assemblage point, of course, in
Right.
whatever stories they come at it with. But
Ah,
and
honestly,
whether
yeah.
that's through lineage, trauma, you
Yes.
name it. And so truth, of course, is relative for everyone. And usually the breakdowns come as a result of lying to yourself for long periods of time.
Would you say, because these breakdowns I have come to feel and know through myself and the clients I work with, it's a part of the journey. But the degree of the gravity of the breakdown and the
Mhm.
size of the 2x4 that we get hit by,
Yep.
would you say it's relative to how much denial we had been living in previous to that? How can you speak into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, barring, of course, everybody's got individual traumas and
Right.
one of my teachers always said, the unavoidable lines of tragedy that we've walked through in our lives that we didn't manifest and, do it. Well, that's a whole other conversation if you want to get into my thoughts on how manifestation has been distorted
Okay.
in all the teachings that are out there. But my view, especially when it comes to getting into the dark nights or the messy middles or the transition times, particularly around our soul work and whether we're doing it, not doing it, and the purpose, which has also been very
Right.
distorted in our modern society. It is because we often are not speaking truth to ourselves. We know what our purpose is. Sometimes we forget. We don't have to find it. It's not lost. We came
Right.
here with it.
Right.
Sometimes we have to remember it. We've forgotten it due to all kinds of external stories. But more often than not, it's because we're lying to ourselves about what it is because we're afraid we're going to be very insecure and unsafe if we pursue that.
Got it.
That's been my
Got it.
experience,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And
it's
so
what
what
I've witnessed time and again.
And so when we deny these truths that on some level, like there's this capital T truth that is always right here, and there's lots of ways to distract ourselves from it because we may
Yep.
be scared of it or not feel capable of it. But when we deny that, then the divine orchestration, the great love,
Mhm.
orchestrates the perfect setup or breakdown to grab our attention. And it's what I've tell me what you feel about this, that what if my foot hurts, what am I going to do? I'm going to pay attention to it. So the discomfort is pausing and it turns us inward. So these breakdowns are designed in these ways to the perfection for the person, for the thing their soul's needing to grow in the way their soul's needing to grow, whether it's loss or whether it's money
Mhm.
situations or parenting, that make them pay attention in this way. So it has to be uncomfortable to presence us.
Yeah, unfortunately. So I do think that we get tons and tons of clues before it gets to that point,
Ooh, this is juicy. Yeah.
and we choose to ignore up until that point. And I always say, even once we discover our soul assignment, it is completely within our sovereignty to continue to say no. But I always tell
Okay.
people, well, beware of that
Yes.
because something's going to show up to keep
Right.
bringing it back and bringing it back. And sometimes people live their entire lives never saying yes and having the continued story and circle of pain. And like I said, we once we figure out what our assignment is, if we ever get self-aware enough to really dive deep and do that work, um, you can, like I said, we are free-willed human beings, depending on who you ask in terms of free will, and we can still keep saying no. And I always say that's really when the cosmic two by four comes in and smacks you upside the head.
Because I started reflecting, like, do I just have to get good at these breakdowns? Like, because I had to figure my way through. For me, it was shuffling my feet in the dark. I didn't have
Mhm.
someone like you on my team at the time. And I was just like, a lot of beauty came out of the struggle. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of, for me, it was a deep connection to God, to the divine energy, because my whole life, I burned it all down. Like, for me, it was evolving out of a life I'd created and
Mhm.
evolving out of it, and none of it fit anymore. And so I had to rebuild this whole life. But there was this period in between before it was rebuilding, but this one was gone. And I remember, like, it's me and God. Like the intimacy of my relationship with myself and God strengthened so beautifully out
Yep.
of desperation.
Mhm.
Like, what do I have? Like, I have the divine energy. And so that's something I've really taken with me ever since. And things like having to not be attached to an outcome.
Yeah, that's very important as well. And that life is
Let's
an
talk about
experiment.
that.
And that goes back to the curiosity. But, I've written long articles about treating life
Really?
like an experiment. And because why not? Like, that's my take on it. And, even with my staff now, with my most recent business venture, I'm like, go ahead and try it. You're not going to cost me thousands if it doesn't work. I'll stop you before that happens. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You're not going to be in trouble. This is all an experiment. It is
I
a whole
love it. Yeah,
living on this mortal coil. The entire human race, as far as I'm concerned, in this current iteration, is an experiment. We're
for real.
failing right now, as far
W-
as I'm concerned. But
We're not doing well.
no, no, we're not.
Hmm. Yeah, like change a variable and notice the experience of life when I adopt this thought pattern, when I treat people this way, when I connect to God at whatever it is. And then for me, if I change a variable and I notice that things really turn up and the vibration of my life elevates when I do that, then I adopt that one as a belief. And we're not so fixed in this experience of life. And the way our
That's
parents
right.
live life doesn't mean it's the way we have to live life. And
Mhm.
especially in those dark moments, those dark nights of the soul, it's a really potent time, fertile time for the variables to change. Would you agree? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, well, sometimes out of desperation, right?
yes,
I mean,
yes,
you know,
yes.
because if not, if you're not open and willing to shifting the variable or being aware enough to know you're in a dark enough place to absolutely require shifting the variable, well, that's when it transmits over into, clinical depression and something
Yeah.
more serious,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
in my
When
view.
when we're when
And
we're
I'm no
stagnant in it.
therapist, but
No,
that's
no,
that's
all
what I've
good.
seen.
But that when we're stagnant in it and we're refusing to see that it's here for us, when we want to take a victim role or a blaming role, which I think is a really important thing to speak in, because what are we talking about, Dina? We're talking about, like, let's just rattle off some things like divorce, a death, losing a job. Give me some.
Yeah, I mean, even just these life ages and stages, motherhood. Huh,
Girl, that
hello.
was that was my I didn't even realize I had one then until I reflected back
Oh,
recently.
yes.
It was a death, even though it was exciting,
It
but I
was.
my feminine self could feel a big what was coming that I had no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I had spoken to a group of doulas because I know a lot of doulas, and I considered that life path at some point in time.
Yeah.
But years ago, well, about 3, 4 years ago, and I said, you're not just ushering bodies into the world; you're ushering souls into the world, and
Yeah.
you're also, because doula means, sister. You're there as a birth sister. I'm like,
Yeah.
you have to be aware of in your profession that you're holding space for a certain kind of death, of the maiden,
For
if we want
real.
to use those
Yes.
goddess terms,
Yes.
and of who we thought we were. And now we're stepping into this next part of our soul path. And for some people, of course, mother is the big soul path for them. And for others of us, that's a part of it.
Yes.
Um, and then we get into this mode where it becomes all of it, and that may or may not be for us. And that's
Yeah.
usually when things start to go awry. But
Yeah.
and the space, even to this day, after me doing this work with women for 30 plus years, I'm like, I'm seeing some things out in the collective go backwards in terms of
Mhm.
supportive women, and that's a whole other podcast. Um, and yet the support is still not there in a way that's beneath the surface of helping to cook a meal or take care of a baby, or those
Right.
things. And
Right.
some of us didn't even have that, so it's often looking back on it, just because you don't want to say, oh, I wasn't thrilled or happy during that time, because then we get judged for that, right? So
Totally. So
there's that.
because
And then
it
there's menopause, which is a whole
yes.
other ball
Empty
game.
nest, when the empty
Oh,
nest happens.
I well, my son ended up staying with us, but the year I thought he was going to be, he actually swapped over into what his soul really was meant to do, which
Mm,
meant he stayed home for a while. But
yeah,
oh, I was a mess. I mean, I was a mess for about a year leading up to when I thought he was going to move out. Just total mess, because we're very close, and he was my only after two miscarriages.
mhm,
Like,
mhm,
grief stories from that. And I mean,
and for women to
grief
honor
grief
these
is a friend,
transitions.
though, and that's what I think we shouldn't, require people to bypass it and put timelines on it, and all these other things. So grief's an interesting conversation, because we don't hold in this society any proper respect for the grief process.
I agree with that. I do. And these are all mini griefs. These are all not they don't not mini in per se, but they're embedded in the journey of being a woman. And
Yeah.
to allow the grief and to recognize it as grief and to let the grief touch you and is an honoring of the transition and actually moves the energy. As I feel this way about all emotions,
Yep.
that are
Yeah.
they actually exist for one reason, to be felt. They're to be
Yes.
felt, and through the feeling of them, the wisdom, and that they move life along. So it's beautiful. We're speaking into these moments of life, these potential feels like breakdown moments can be becoming a mother, kids transitioning out of the home, transitioning out of menstruation. What does that mean for me as
Mhm.
a woman? And what are all the stories I'm told? It could be the death of someone, the end of a friendship or a
Yeah.
relationship,
Hmm.
a job loss. Like if you've really identified with a job and had it for a
Oh,
long,
yeah.
right?
I went through that too. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
attach our identity to so many things, and these changes are to shake up life. and for us to expand and get out of the monotonous easiness that we think we want, and the universal love is like, no, 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 no.
We don't want it. And truth is, we don't want it.
Uh-huh.
Carolyn Mace, one of my all-time,
Yes.
favorite spiritual teachers, probably one of the first people I really paid attention to when I was starting to open up to these things, a long, long time ago. But, she talks about the myth of and it's like, how boring would it be if we stepped into this life and knew exactly how it was going to go and
For
exactly
real.
how it was going to end? And I mean, maybe some people would be like, "Oh yeah, that would be great." Not me. I am like, I am too much of a unconventional, eccentric, curious, zebra is my spirit animal, like total curiosity. I would be
Yeah.
so bored with that.
Yeah.
So bored with that. So I mean, there's a book that I'll mention here called Life is in the Transitions, and it's a
Yeah.
fabulous book. I did some coach training around transition coaching, and that
Okay.
book was referenced quite a bit through the training. And he talks about, there's the different stages, of course, of life transitions, and how do we, some of us love beginnings, some of us love endings or hate endings, and some of us can sit in the messy middle for a good amount of time or far too long. But what he talks about is the life quake moments, besides the
Mm,
everyday little,
mm.
things that go on. And um, I he gives a number, and you'd be astonished. I can't remember what it is, about like how many life quakes we actually go through. And I think part of our pain and suffering is we think one's over and it's never going to happen again.
For real.
Like when I wrote about my
For real.
2016 meltdown, and that story was published in an anthology, at the end of that short piece was, I don't know if this is ever going to happen again. It might.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might.
I think this is such an important piece, because my intention for today's episode is to help people have one, know they're not alone in these moments. Everyone goes through them. And not only here's ways of getting through them, but it's more importantly than ways of getting through them. Here's understanding why they're here.
Yeah.
And that level of understanding makes the next one and the next one, I don't know, easy, but for me, I'm like, how is this for me? Okay, how is this happening for me?
Hmm.
Because I fucking know it is. Because I have checked it every which way, and I cannot come to a belief that the world is just cruel and mean, or I have bad luck. It's
Yeah,
it's
luck has
nowhere
nothing to
in
do
my
with it.
system. There's no truth in my system that tells me that it's bad luck, or there's any cruelty in this universal makeup. And so
Right.
all I'm left with is, this is for me. Where is my attention needed that I'm not putting it? And what am I resisting? Dina, this is a big one. What am I resisting? To me, that when I start fucking suffering, I'm like, oh shit. All right,
Hmm.
Denise. Suffering is resistance. Pain is inevitable. Suffering, you're
Yeah.
not willing to look. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I also want to state a fact that, I feel this is a very
Yes.
personal thing of
Yes.
mine. I feel very privileged to be in a place and space where I can take the space to sit with these things. And I want to fully acknowledge that there are women around, and people, but women is what we're talking about here, around the world, who have to survive on the deepest of survival levels and cannot just sit in this space and wonder what this next
Wow.
level of pain has for them. So I want to get that right out of the way.
Wow. Beautifully said. Beautiful to honor. And it is a huge gratitude to
Yeah,
have the space. And
right,
when I didn't have the space, I couldn't reflect. I was stuck in it. Like,
right.
you need to have the space.
You need
Is
to
there a
have,
way without the space?
right, and but most importantly, you need to have, like, you need to have your basic needs met. It's like Maslow's hierarchy.
For real. No, totally. Like,
If you,
who's
you
going to
know,
contemplate what they're resisting if they're starving and their children aren't safe, you know?
exactly. That's, so I just
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
speak
Thank
that
you. Thank you.
truth
Thank you.
before I go on to my own whatever sob story. And sometimes it's that. It's like, get over yourselves,
Yeah.
ladies.
Yeah.
You're privileged. You can do, there is a bit of that. I can get
Yeah.
really fierce about that too
Yeah.
when people
I
say
hear you.
stuck in kind of surface level stuff, like the I'm not good enough things, to
Yeah.
all those. Um I can get a little bit impatient sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, because
Don't
like,
lie.
look, and it's not to take responsibility for suffering we didn't cause in others as
Good
well.
point. Yes.
Um, but there is lineage work often to be done around that too. So
Okay.
that's a whole big conversation. But I really do think that, again, I'll go back to it. Life would be fairly boring without these ups and downs and roller coaster rides that we go on. And um, I'm not just talking about work, but like you said, w- there's just so much that we know deep down in our soul, and we also live in a society that really thrives on us not tapping into our soul and our intuition. Um,
Hmm.
that's
You
been
cut
ripped
out on
away
my
from
end a
women
little bit.
for centuries. Oh,
There's what that benefits from us not tapping in?
well,
Say that
the
part again.
overculture, the
Yes.
massive
Okay.
patriarchal overculture benefits on us, being cogs in the
Yes.
machine.
Yes. And this
Uh,
awakening is threatening to a lot of structures. This
oh
awakening,
yes. And the
you know.
structures are crumbling. In my prayer, of course, all the time, because I've done this work long enough to know but the ancients have known this since they set the time schedules thousands of years ago.
Yes.
And it's like, but mother, can we please do this with the least amount of pain and suffering as possible for the people who have already been in pain and suffering? On a collective level.
Yeah.
So it does behoove the powers that be for people to
Yeah.
stay unconscious and disconnected from who they are at a soul level.
It's true. And I'm really encouraged by the momentum of the awakening I feel in the collective, but in women.
Yeah, and we're
In,
gonna have to be spiritual warriors through it, though. And
yeah.
and
Tell me more about that. What do you mean by that?
well, I mean, I think it's just you're seeing it out in the collective. Like I said, I think women have taken some steps back since in the gen,
Yes.
in the last generation, and the things my mother fought for. You
Uh-huh.
know, so I
Uh-huh.
mean,
I hear
we
you.
have to stay awake and aware to there are a lot of people who don't want to see the awakening occur. It kind of goes back to that cogs in the wheel, and so. Um, I had a conversation with somebody the other day about, hey, I'm feeling the need to protest, whatever. And you said all emotions are great emotions. Sacred rage is also one of those emotions. And I feel like those of us who have been down this path for an amount of time and in the healing spaces and who want to be of service to something larger than our own sitting in space and consciousness is that we've been doing that work so that we can come out of the cave. These times are calling for us to come out of the cave.
Mm.
And a lot of what I mentor women around is you don't have to have it all healed in order to be
Mhm.
of service. And often
Mhm.
the service work is what heals you. This is a reciprocity.
Hello.
That's what manifestation is really all about. It's not
Mm.
just me manifesting stuff for myself and, the
Mhm.
boat, mansion, and yacht, and or even healing.
Mhm. Yep.
Most indigenous cultures realize when the shaman goes off into the cave, they're doing it to get medicine for the village and bring it back, not just
Right.
for themselves.
Right.
And so any dark night I've ever been through, I've
Mhm.
asked the question of where's the medicine, not just for
Ah.
me, but for whoever I'm walking
Ooh.
in space with.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful when you go into the dark. We go down into our vibration drops in these dark
Mhm.
nights of the soul, these breakdown moments. And I believe our vibration has to drop to kind of excavate, to go down
Yeah.
into the dark and to excavate what wants to be liberated. But it's not just for us. We're all one. You're saying, and how is this for the collective? What am I bringing back? Because with every I believe every breakdown, the magnitude of it is equal and opposite to what's coming through. And it has
Yeah.
to unravel as much as it's going to recreate. And we have to create the space. And so we know when we come back into the world, if we can get through all of that and integrate the lessons and have a lot of courage, a lot of courage, a lot of trust and faith, and come through,
Mhm.
we're bringing that vibration to the collective. Everything we touch, how we serve, our relationships all upgrade. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like
Yeah. Yeah. You don't even necessarily have to like be sitting in one-on-one mentorship space, to your
being
point.
it.
And that's something, Carolyn also taught me, and in more recent years in some of her lectures. And, really that is, um, to step into that sovereignty with whatever lessons learned that you gained with what you could truly handle at the time, which I do think that's what we're given. And then we're still going to keep what we're not ready to face in the shadows. That's what a shadow by definition is.
Right.
And that, yes, we can exude that energy, and it does help empower everyone else around us.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe, but again, it's a matter of readiness. Not everybody's energetic body is going to be ready to receive it either. Um, and so it's a both and to me, not
I
an either
see.
or.
So there's a component of readiness, and sometimes we do get breakthroughs, but there's way more, but we can only hold a
Yeah.
percentage, let's say, or a
Mhm.
portion of the whole truth.
Yeah, right. I think that's
Wow.
true. I think yeah, we're given what our energy system is elevated, to whatever point is ready to handle without blowing our circuits and making us really mentally or physically ill. And
Completely.
then,
Yeah.
often when with those illnesses that are more tangible than the energetic ones do come on, it's, a combination of things. Like I'm never the one to say, "Oh, it's because you didn't work on your energy system that suddenly you have cancer." In fact, I'm really fierce about that, given that I'm a cancer survivor.
Yes. Yes.
And that can lead into one of those unavoidable lines of tragedy as well. But it was a stop and look moment for me of, am I taking care of my body in the way that I should be, without blame, shame, or guilt in any way, shape, or form, because I don't do
Crucial.
that. I'm not good at
Crucial.
that.
So you were diagnosed with cancer. This is one of your
Uh-huh.
breakthrough stories. Will you get into this one a little bit? Let's give this example of how you navigated that and what came through for you and what your struggles were.
I think, well, first of all, I want to say it was a fairly gentle journey, as these types of journeys go.
Yep.
And there was a lot of reasons for that, but one of which was like very specific. I had my prayer warriors saying, "No, don't just pray for my highest good. Pray for it. Like, this is how I want this test result to come out. And this is
Okay.
like," and it was
Okay.
very sort of directive along the way.
Okay.
Um, had I not gone through the previous journeys and done so much inner work and have had mentors, you mentioned you went through yours and didn't have anyone there. Well, I've always had, like, it. The teacher shows up when I need them, and
Yes.
sometimes they're existing teachers to help walk me through that or help me see my shadows. But it's like, I don't believe there's a person on the planet that shouldn't have a mentor of some kind, whether you want to call them a
Yes.
therapist, a spiritual mentor,
Yes.
whatever it is. They're at the ready, whether it's a paid person or not paid person. I'm willing to pay to have somebody to
Oh yeah.
listen to my stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
And for me, it's more than listening. I want someone to call me out on my stuff as well.
Show
Um,
me what I'm not seeing.
Show me
Exactly.
what
Where
I'm
are my
not
blind
seeing.
spots?
And so I don't know. I can't honestly say whether I would have handled that cancer journey the same if I hadn't already done so much deep
That's
inner
fair. Yeah.
work.
Hmm.
So and so now, I hold space for people here and there that come to me, getting ready to go through the exact same experience.
Right.
And, on the conscious level, I knew based on the type of cancer I had that, I wasn't going to die, very curable, so on. And yet
It's
you
still
still want
cancer.
to face your
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
You're forced into that. There's no not
Yeah.
thinking about it. And most traditions make that a practice, except for some of
Hmm.
our more modern, organized religions.
Hmm.
It's like the Buddhists have, like, die before you die practice. They do it daily. It's like, this might be the last time I brush my teeth, and what, so
Exactly.
we're, so again, it goes hand in hand with grief. We don't know how to deal with death because of what we've been conditioned to believe in terms of death in the afterlife. So that's a
True.
whole other conversation. But it was really just being present during that time to whatever wanted to come up. Talk about the waves. I mean, you just, like I said, I'm holding the hand of a very close friend of mine through this right now, and
Hmm.
she keeps calling
Hmm.
me. She's like, "Okay, I'm at," because I warned her, and I said,
Hmm.
one moment you're going to be fine, and consciously again that you're going to be fine physically,
Hmm.
but that doesn't stop the waves from coming at all different, inopportune moments and times. And just like you said earlier with the emotions, it's like if you try to stuff them down, they're just going to come and explode all at once, as opposed to, okay, we're just going to shed some tears right now, have
Mhm.
a pity party, have a wise woman sob, and release it, and keep saying, I know I'm safe, I know I'm going to be okay, and really sit with actually the truth of, what if I'm not? What if I
I
walk off this mortal coil? Where's my soul going? Okay, I'm probably pretty cool with that. The people behind who I leave behind, they're going to be upset. But my
I think
soul's going
this
to be
is
going on to its next journey.
really important. Let's pause here because I want to pull the gems out of these beliefs and understandings and to support anyone going through this. And I find this one was something I had to figure out, which was, can I make love to the worst case scenario? Because that
Hmm.
would be my resistance. I'm resisting, like, all the doors are open, but this one's fucking locked. Like, this one outcome cannot happen. But all these 10, like, whichever one is cool. And it's like, until I can unlock this door, I'm not free. I'm
Right.
I'm I can't be okay with this. And so the whole process so many times is, can I make love? Not just can I breathe, but can I see it as God?
Yeah.
See it as beauty. Because what the hell do I know? Like, I just feel scared of it. But what if that's the door that, if I face that thing, breaks my life free into ways that I've been dreaming of?
Right.
And this is me getting out of the control center and saying, that's why I tattooed allow on my wrist. Like, allow the plan, dude. And
Uh-huh.
so, can you be okay with the worst case scenario, even if that is, my soul contract may be complete, this may be my time?
Right.
And that's actually freedom. Do you feel that? Like,
Oh,
it
indeed. Any of the spiritual teachers that talk about the death walker is going to say that very same thing. And it's,
it's big
it's
girl shit, man.
It
It's
is
big
big
girl
girl shit.
shit.
And I used to do, a 13 moon journey with a
Okay.
group of women. And one of the months, of course, is like intentionally walking with the Queen of Death. And so, in the conversational pieces of that, I always ask a deep, like one of those jolting kind of inquiries when we open up. Well, I don't open that way because that really scares, but like a round or two into the circle, I'll go super deep. And um, the question that year, and with this group of women, was, and it was a truism. It was like a mic drop kind of situation. And it was like, are you more afraid of death and dying, or life and living? And it was like, whew.
Good question.
And every one of them was like, when they sat with it, was like living, like
Hello.
truly living. And
Yeah.
that's what my cancer journey showed me. Now, do I wobble on this? Of course. And
You're
there's
human.
all the
Yeah, yeah.
mundane things and
Oh
that
yeah.
sort of deal, but it
Oh
was
yeah.
really like total wake up call, like a total paradoxical wake up call that says this thing's not forever, and then you better not stop living.
Live it
That
fully.
live it fully, YOLO, whatever you want to
Yeah.
say. And I mean, do risk certain types of, and I think some of us have different risk aversion around different things than
Yes.
other things.
Totally.
Like
Totally.
mine's more physical risk aversion. Like, I'm not gonna, used to want to jump out of a plane. I'm not so sure anymore. But
Yeah.
business risk and relationship risk, and things I try, I'm not afraid to be embarrassed anymore, which is always a young woman kind of thing. I think when
Sure.
you get older, you stop really caring
Giving a
about
fuck.
that.
Yeah.
But it is a wake up call to ask yourself that question, and to really come to realize we don't have unlimited time here. um and
It's
let's, like,
powerful.
yeah.
I want to stay here because we have such a tendency, the collective, our society, to clench onto what we think I'll be okay if, and then we control. And I've learned it blocks the source.
Hmm.
I feel like I think I'm only going to be okay if I stay married to my husband. For me, it was relational.
Yeah.
And I can't leave him. I'll do anything, but I can't leave him. And then the wisdom coming through me was, it has to die. You may be with him, you may not, but this rendition of this
Yeah.
19 years together is over, and you have to completely let it go to see if you'll get it back.
Right.
like that was
Right.
the fucking truth, Dina. It was so true. And then I got the download and it was like, oh, that is the truth. And I really was evolving as a woman to feel what truth felt like. Like, oh, that is so sturdy. But then I'd bring it back to earth and my ego self. And I'm like, huh, my kids, my, like, but it's the truth. And so I suffered because I resisted we
Uh-huh.
finally did it. And it was the courage. But like resisting became more painful than however painful I thought leaving him would be.
Yep.
And through letting it go and not being attached to an outcome, which was so new, and letting it be what it needed to be, we ended up refinding this beautiful love. But I couldn't leave him knowing, hey, I'll be right back. I promise. We're going to get back together. I had to leave saying, I have no idea.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah.
But will you let's let it die. And we both had to like meet all our inner children and grieve so deeply and hold our own pain, which made us greater versions of ourselves that we could re-meet as those people. That's the beauty. I wanted to give that example of like,
It's a fantastic example.
you know what I'm saying? Like the one door that's locked. What if it's behind there? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that's such a great example, I think, for because I'm sitting in with many women our age that are going through this journey. We've been together for 1,000 years with our loved ones. We've raised a kid, then that we constellated around that as parents for how long, and now we're getting to re-know each other, very different humans than when we met at 25, in my case, that sort of
Same,
thing.
same.
And so so many of us, I mean, this is not an unusual transition for like, I'm just packing it in because like they're driving me crazy kind of stuff. I mean, we're having
Hmm.
some of this right now too. So I love what you're saying about that because I do a lot of Kundalini yoga and I have my favorite teacher. I'll give a shout out to Jai Dave with the
Jai
Life
Dave.
Force Academy. And in one of the transmissions recently, and we know this to be true, but our relationships are our shadow mirrors.
Mm. I mean, for real.
And then sometimes you have to have the jolt in
Yeah.
order for each person to take accountability and sovereignty over,
Yes.
what, and because the other piece of it is maybe I dismantle this whole thing and it doesn't reform again, or it does reform in a different way. But
And I don't get to
it's,
know. I
you
don't
don't
get
get
to
to
know.
know, but it also helps you open your eyes. At least this is a space where I'm at. It's like and I mean, I know this is cliche, but it's like I'm responsible for my joy,
Yeah. Yes.
and you
And
can come along for the ride if you
yes.
want.
Yes. And I think after the 18 years together from, growing up together, there was these codependencies that just
Yes,
are
it's
insidious.
just natural. They
It's just
happen. Yeah.
natural but those codependencies weren't like little tweaks. Like it needed
Uh-huh.
us to like hold ourselves and to the relationship was almost medicating parts of me and parts of him versus holding ourselves, having to meet our own pain, hold ourselves,
Hmm.
become whole and then re-meet. And that was the plan, but we couldn't know that. We had to let go, not
Yeah.
knowing. And it's just I think these stories are important for people who might be in the middle of one of these and in the suffering cycle, and just to consider the surrender,
Yes.
into what that truth that you talked about there's a capital T truth that's always right here. Can we, and it's never going to go, it's steady, but we have all the song and
Yeah,
dance
that monkey
over it.
mind. Yep. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And like you were saying, the breakdowns don't have to be so gnarly because there are whispers that we override. And if you look back, there've been, what would you call them? Like little clues or nudges you could have responded, but it wasn't shaking up your world yet.
Yeah, well, you said something earlier, and I know there's an Anna East Nin quote around this, but it's not coming to me right now. But it's like when the pain and the suffering become,
Like
the
pain is
fear.
inevitable, suffering is
Well,
a
there's that
choice or
one, and
something.
then
Yeah.
there's that one where the pain and suffering like shifts to where it's so much worse than whatever you're afraid of
Yes.
in terms of the
Yes. The current
and
situation becomes so painful that whatever you're afraid of doing is less. You just do it.
and
Right.
you just do it. And so unfortunately sometimes we have to get to that. But I think, Again, and this kind of goes back to and this is where the practice part of this comes in, having a regular practice to ask yourself
Mhm.
these questions and these inquiries
Mm,
so they
mm,
don't go smacking you around. Being in
mm.
awareness, taking time out, new moon, certainly as we go into the fall and winter thresholds, to really follow nature and go fallow. For whether that's for you, that's 5 minutes a day, or you can do, I used to do pretty much the whole winter solstice to February 1st, St. Bridget's Day. Like, I'd already, I work my schedule to the point where I could go behind the veils like that for that long of a period of time and really dig in there. And then also vision, but we want to we're also trained to come out of the gate in January with all these goals and visions and vision boards and, that whole gamut. And we don't, first of all, usually those only focus on work, not any other aspect of our lives.
Right,
And
right.
secondly, we don't even tap into celebrate what we have accomplished and done, and how we've grown in this last, whatever your yearly cycle is,
Yeah,
and when it starts and ends. i
yeah.
i don't tend to do the January 1st thing. Most cultures, actually, that's not New Year's for
Right,
hardly anyone,
right.
historically. So it is really taking stock and slowing down, but it's those small practices that says, and one of my teachers, like, what is really true right now? Because we're always running these stories. um, in the Toltec wisdom, we've got the big soul and the little soul, and we've, like, four agreements. That's all about our inner stories, and the fact that only we're the author of our own story. You're the only author of your story. My husband's the only author of his
Right,
story, and everyone else is just a secondary character, including
right.
me. So I think, with in our partnerships especially, we love to be just as highly egoic, in that my story is the utmost importance for that other person, and the truth of the
Right.
matter is, and it goes both between us both,
Yeah,
right? And the truth of the matter is, no, that's not true. I'm the author of mine, he's the author of his, and we're both characters in each other's stories. And,
yes.
hopefully we rewrite the together parts of the stories in a way that works for both of our individual big soul stories.
From that
uh,
context. Okay, so I originally formulated Bliss and Tallow as a clean, deeply nourishing body butter, using tallow as the main ingredient because honestly, the moisture is unreal. It's rich and not greasy, and it just lasts like 24 hours lasts. It hydrates deeper into the skin instead of just sitting on top of the skin. Okay, but here's the thing. I didn't just make this for your skin. I also formulated this for your pleasure. So, yes, your skin will feel soft and hydrated for hours. But what I really love is hearing all the stories from women who are slowing down and taking their time and actually enjoying the experience of putting it on. From the smell to the texture, the ritual of rubbing it in, it's like your body starts to remember, oh, I get to receive, I get to feel good. Bliss isn't just a feeling, it's a frequency. And this body butter, it helps you tune right into that frequency. So if you're ready to create more moments of softness, sensuality, and self-connection, Bliss and Tallow is your jam. I'm offering you 10% off with code BLISS10 plus 100% satisfaction guarantee because I want nothing to get in the way of you finding your bliss. So that's something you talk about because, talking to women who might be going through this or are really hearing what we're saying about it doesn't have to be so catastrophic if we're listening. And I think so. I'm hearing you make this connection of working with nature, and it's something that you do with women and connect them to the harmony of nature. And maybe you can speak more specifically, but I'm hearing you say like using new moon energy, full moon energy, using nature to tune in, and one, the space and time is first of
mm-hmm.
all
Yep.
stepping out, and then using the attunements and the harmony of nature to ask yourself these questions to start to extract, wait, I am having this nudge that I've been ignoring. Is that so? Tell me how you use
Yeah.
nature. Yeah.
I mean, I love ritual, so, I create different ones all the time, and, have fun. I'm an herbalist, as
Yep.
we'll talk about. So, with a specialty in using plants for sacred ritual purposes, because that's how, I mean, I use them in all ways on physical, emotional body, but that's really like my favorite. And the other ladies in the store have their favorite areas of expertise. But, um, of course, slow down, and to me, it's like there's the big practice at whatever time frame, new moon, what have you, that you want to do. And by big practice, I mean spend an hour or two. And it
Yeah.
doesn't, we always joke, the wise woman calendar doesn't mean that you have to do it exactly on the new moon.
Yeah.
It's within a few days, or if
Right.
it's the winter solstice. Well, ancient agricultural traditions celebrated those things for weeks at a time.
The
We
energy
happen to put
spans. It's not,
one day on it, on the calendar, but
don't let the
that's
moon
us.
stress you out. Okay.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's us being so man-made calendar
Mm-hmm.
and time driven. So one of the reasons to work with nature in harmony is to begin to allow yourself to step out. Yes, you're still going to show up to the dentist on time and go to
Yes.
work and all of that, but
Yes.
that it's more being a time mistress, really. And it's really like understanding your rhythms, understanding by season. And most people, like so many people here in Colorado, at least, definitely come to me and say, I have seasonal affective disorder. And I said, well, yeah, because we're supposed to be fallow during that time. And the rest of modern culture tells us we should be out creating a million goals and manifesting all these things. But we innately, as humans who are also nature's creatures, we tend to forget that as well,
Right.
um, are tuned to operate in those same cycles. So
Right.
but instead of allowing ourselves to go a little bit and acknowledge and love the fact that it's dark at 4:30, I know a lot of us don't, but I start to get into a rhythm where I'm like, okay, I want the comfort food, and I'm going to use
Mm-hmm.
this time to be the
Mm-hmm.
bear, because that's bear medicine time of the year too, and it's really looking to the animals, especially, and the
Yeah.
plants, and
Yeah.
paying attention to what they're doing and mimic that as much as possible. There's actually a whole body of work that I've tapped into a little bit because I am a multi-passionate, called biomimicry, where people are making solutions to things like climate change and developing products and even systems
Tap into the highest wisdom that already exists. Yeah. Hello.
through
Yeah.
biomimicry and
How do
saying,
trees do it? However they do it,
right,
we should be doing it.
we should be doing it,
Yeah.
right? And we'd all be a lot better off, and our resources
I
would
love that.
be,
I love
so I
that.
mean, there's that piece, and that's getting a little bit deep. But I mean, it's as simple as, whether for you it's nighttime or the morning. Like some of us, there's a lot of meditation teachers out there. Oh, you got to do it in the morning. Well, no, if that's not your rhythm,
Yeah.
then it's okay if you don't do it in the
Yeah.
morning. I'm
Yeah.
actually much better, and I honor my brain. I
Yeah.
do contemplative things in the morning
Yeah.
and meditative things in the evening when it
Mm-hmm.
gets dark, because
There's no
that's
right way.
just
Just do it.
more rhythmic
Like,
for me,
yeah, like
right?
it's
And
really
so,
about taking the time to be
mhm,
with yourself
right.
and get off the ride and
Yeah.
not be too specific about it, but through that the wisdom flows. Like the
Hmm.
awarenesses are all right there. It's like this, you don't have to work so hard. We need to create this space,
No.
connect it with nature. It's even more potent.
Right, exactly right. And so is that type of structure also
Yes.
creates flow. Again, it's a paradox.
Yeah.
When so many women I know that especially the more creative healing arts ladies that I work with, and it's like, well, I don't like structure. It feels like it's confining and this and that. I'm like, no, it keeps your energy from being chaotic, and it makes it more potent because you've got a container for it. And I tend to use the specific, like, I'm not an astrologer, but I will look at the new moon and say, oh, it's new moon in Leo, whatever it is, and be like, well, okay, it's that kind of energy. So let me ask some inquiries that really relate to this particular new moon.
Using those energies to support the
Yeah,
work. Like whatever's stronger going on astrologically is
yeah,
supportive.
absolutely. I think it's
Yeah.
augment, it can augment it by being an acknowledgement of it, and asking yourself sometimes the easy questions, just as simple as, how am I really feeling right now?
Yeah.
And we probably don't have time for this today, but understanding what your strongest intuitive gift, like everybody's intuitive as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. Like, I
Yeah.
don't get involved in mediumship and all of that, because I think we all have those gifts. We just need to know how to tune into them, and we need to honor the ones. I'm a strengths-based person. Like I don't focus in my work on people on what's missing. Everybody's already whole.
Yes.
You can spend time on what your weaknesses are, and
Yes.
I'm much more of a maximizer of
Yes.
somebody's strengths and
Yes.
acknowledging what those are, because we often miss our own strengths, just like we miss our own shadows. It's an
Yes.
interesting place, right?
And we can hyper
But
focus on what isn't there all day long.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so it's just that focus into how do you get your intuition? Do you feel it in your body? Do you hear it? Do you just know? And there's some specific questions you can
I
ask
love
yourself
that.
to determine that, but then really capitalizing. And so when I say my morning is a contemplative practice, that usually means, I check in with where my energy's at before I get out of bed, but then it also means, okay, maybe I'll pull an oracle card, maybe I'll pull a sacred text of some kind out, or
Mhm.
beautiful poetry, Rumi, whatever is
Mhm.
speaking to you. Um,
Mhm.
and my friends say I was a librarian in my past life. Pretty sure that's true. So they call me the sacred librarian. So I've always got something
Yep.
appropriate in the moment. So sometimes I'll go into it with just intuition and pull what I read and kind of ask myself more questions, or have that really be with me throughout the day, or do the opposite, go into it with like, what am I sitting with right now?
Right.
What's keeping me up at night?
Okay. I
And then
like it.
journal on that, and maybe pull a reading. And then the biggest piece that I tell
Yeah.
people, especially if they're going to connect with nature, journal what came up, whatever the answers to your own inner questions were, or the card, or whatever it is you do to tune in. Um, and get some wise information from the spirit guides, if you will. But then it's pay attention throughout the day and even week, whatever it is, however often you do this practice, to the synchronicities, because
Mm.
those are the nudges. And the soul speaks. And the reason I use card decks, and usually oracle more than tarot, although I will pull a tarot deck out every once in a while, um, but the soul speaks in synchronicity, image, symbol, not plain
Yep.
language most of the
Yep.
time. So it's like the wackier, weirder stuff that just drops in for you, however it happens to your body, and it's making no sense to you on the conscious level. Dream work too, of course, pay attention to your dreams and how they synchronize up with awake life. Um, and being in the imaginal realm during awake time, so awake dreaming. We don't allow ourselves that because we've been told after we're 8 years old that we, can't play or be in the imaginal realms
Right.
anymore.
We cut
Um,
that off.
so that's a big piece of my practice as well. And so, and the brain doesn't know the difference. The actual physical brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So if you can vision it, you can bring it into form.
So these are all ways that you use that one can use, especially when they're in the thick of it, to stay attuned to self. Like we are our own gurus. So it's creating the
Uh-huh.
space, creating the internal conversation, using the forces around us, like astrology, the moon,
Mhm.
nature, like sinking into what already exists to create the space and the connection to have that dialogue and start listening. Like, what do I know? How do I know it? Where do I feel that? What does
Mhm.
that make me? What am I really feeling? If
Mhm.
this one's so important because culturally, especially in the States, we are just hyper programmed for like make it go away. I'm just gonna push it down, pretend it's not there. I'm just gonna distract, and I'm gonna just and then what's the panic attack? Well, the beach ball that you were holding in the deep
That's the
water,
panic
it's
attack.
gonna come out. So in all my years of treating people for mental health issues, panic attacks, there wasn't one person with panic attacks that I said, what have you been holding in? That's all I asked someone with panic
Yep.
attacks, and they're like, oh. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, it's a leak. It's a
It's,
pressurized leak.
it's a
Like
power leak. It's an
not
energy leak. Absolutely.
exactly. And so what am I really feeling? And then what you said, all these practices on the emotional realm, what I want to bring in that I found so important in my practice, in my coaching with women, and IFS does this so beautifully,
Hmm.
is what am I feeling? And can you just be with it? Like,
Yes.
not can you go away? Okay, well, what do I do? How do I fix it? Like the power, Dina, I have seen in
Yep.
myself and in my clients of coaching them to, I say, just sit next to it. Just be there. That's
Yeah.
feeling in your stomach, that fear. Just can you be with it and maybe give it a bigger chair? Give it more space. Does it need more room? It's welcome here. And because
Yep.
it's so used to being re-shut down and cut its head off and medicate it and drink it down and go shopping, whatever the fuck we do. But
Yep.
like, can you, and just being with it, not why are you here? What
Yeah.
do you, it just needs us.
It's the
Like,
surrender, and that, because that was the hallmark, by the way, of my 2016 Dark Night, was I was in a constant panic attack for 3 months, literally
wow,
constant
that
panic
is
attack
terrible.
for 3 months, and could barely leave my house. And even if I wanted to medicate myself, my brain chemistry actually doesn't do well on those meds. So there was a month and a half of that was me saying, how do I get this gone? And I knew all the practices. I was already doing all the things we talked about today. I knew yoga, I knew supplements. I didn't know
Yeah,
some of the
yeah,
deeper level spiritual stuff at the time. That was the catalyst after the fact.
I'm sure.
A mentor
Right.
came into my life at that moment as well, through my one of my herbal teachers, and that was it. In the end, it truly was like, I can't leave the house. I
Yeah.
can't. I
So
can't
what was the breakthrough? How
meditate.
yeah,
Well, two couple breakthroughs. One was surrender to it. That was the first one, what you're just talking
right?
about.
Right.
And the second one, with the help of my mentor, was waking up to the fact that what, at least the iteration of what I thought my soul assignment was it was how it was being manifest at the time, was not it. And then I came to realize what it is sort of a much more divine sort of umbrella thing, and the things we call our vocation is just a part of what our soul is here to share. It's
Yes.
it's one manifestation of it, and it doesn't it's going to it's for many of us, for most of us, and especially the upcoming generations, the way that shows up in vocation will change countless times, and we get so stuck on it has to look a certain way, or I have to have the title of a healer or massage therapist or this, that, all the things.
We
And
are just seeking safety and security. Like, can we just stay? Can it just stay like this
exactly.
forever? Like, let life
And
flow.
yet it was
It's
like, no,
risky.
I don't really want to do this. Like, and part of it was like, my husband came off a really bad injury, that we were
Oh.
healing him from in that
Uh-huh.
year. And
Uh-huh.
so I think my safety in terms of projecting onto him being my rock and my root, and that when now suddenly we had a big
Totally.
scare with him,
Mhm.
it was that shook me
Mhm.
a little bit.
Right.
Um, and then the career thing, oh, here I am, but it had just raised or got my kid to the point where he was pretty self-sufficient. He was
Right.
going into high school.
Right.
And it was like, this is supposed to be my time, talk about that motherhood journey. And nothing was coming, which is funny in terms of manifestation. It was like nothing was coming the way I wanted it to. And then it was finally like, well, no, because that still wasn't it. And then there was a moment of beating myself up of, how many different modalities am I going to try? And blah, 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 blah.
Okay, pause, pause. Nothing was coming the way I wanted it to, and it's so hard in those moments to even realize that what the plan we think we have, what if it's not the greatest plan for the greatest good of ourselves
Uh-huh.
and the collective? Like, that's the allow. It's like,
Yeah.
let it go the way it's going. Like, it's not going that way, but then we fight and we hold and we cling. And I just want the listeners to, it's a tough reflection because we've decided if it goes this one way I want it to go, everything will be okay. But it's
Yeah. Well,
not true.
And I think, at least for me, kind of circling back to the death conversation,
Yeah.
it's like I want to be so in service. I want to see so many things transform in the collective that,
Yeah.
right now like I said, I'm like, what are these humans doing? Like, we're going backwards, from what I was hoping for. But in any case, it was like I always walked around, and I still have to catch myself with this. Um, I'm going to run out of time to make the difference, to see
Mm.
the new earth that we know is going to
Mm.
result from all this dismantling. Like, I keep praying, I really hope I see some of this in my lifetime. And then when I went through the cancer journey, it's like, well, what if I don't?
Yeah.
At least you planted some seeds, maybe with a few people. And I think that was another lesson that I got from many of my teachers. And that was understanding that I didn't have to be TikTok famous or any of that. In fact, that didn't bring me any joy whatsoever. And it's the understanding of helping sit in space with one person and making one small shift. Of course, if you look at the indigenous wisdom, that means you could be impacting 7 generations forward and back. So
Yes.
understanding that we all
Yes.
want to be, and Carolyn, another one, she jokes about this all the time. Like, we all think we're so extraordinary and we want to be extraordinary, but basically we're not. And then the second that we figure that out and we're okay with it and we just like find the sacred in the mundane,
And the
like
extraordinary in whatever is,
in the
like whatever
mundane,
you
right?
did was enough. Like there's enough. It's enough, right?
Yep.
Versus like, but it comes from such a good intentioned place of like, you feel like I want to contribute. Like I want to see this thing through. I want to
Yep.
move the
Yep.
needle. I want to help. I feel it. I'm here for that. But
Yeah.
not to let that become a stressor or a way that removes
Right.
joy from life.
Exactly.
So
And to
this,
know it can
mhm,
change the way it manifests out in the world. Like, there's a great teaching from Jonathan Gustin about purpose, and there's like 8 arms of that. And part of it is, what's your giveaway?
mhm,
And then
mhm,
what's your vocation, and how that work, soul work, shows up, outside to bring you hopefully also some sustenance and all of what we need in today's modern world. But it's like, to limit it even to just those two things is too limiting. um
yeah,
and so, if I'm
mhm,
going dark, or I'm starting to put on my shadow queen side, and I'm, cutting everybody's head off and doing what I do as a Jersey girl that gets fired up,
Jersey
um,
Collie, uh-huh.
is like, I come back to the sacred soul question, which for me is to inspire things into form. That is my true soul work. And
Yeah,
however that shows up now,
right,
that's
right.
what I'm open to. That's what I say yes
Beautiful.
to. And when I'm going into shadow, what I stop and say is, huh, am I being inspirational right now? And am I being inspired? Because the soul assignment is something you need to receive as well as give. So I need to be inspired as well as be inspiring. And so when I feel like I'm going into shadow, I'll stop and be like, okay, where's the inspiration right now? Where's the wobble, away from that?
The key element of what you're saying is that you have to have awareness of self and develop that observer of self to even know, oh, I'm in shadow. Oh, no, I'm in the light. I'm in alignment. No, I'm in, and to understand when that shadow happens, how do I work with my, so it takes
Yep.
that spiritual evolution of like observing self non-judgmentally but
Right.
curiously, like
The
the
witness.
witness
Exactly.
to be able to say. And I think that's another beautiful uh, tool for anyone in any of the any rough moments, be them big or large. I mean, we're giving some great awarenesses right now, some ways of perspective, ways of looking at it, ways of meeting it. And this is another one of like watching yourself and having that awareness of how am I acting in this? And yeah, connecting into maybe making more conscious choice of how I want to be meet this. And you said, am I being inspiring, was
Hmm.
your question to yourself in that moment.
Yeah.
And because it's ultimately like the tantric principle, like weaving it all together. It all
Yep.
exists. It's all important. Like this is the bliss lab, and it's bliss is a frequency, but bliss is moments. It's a frequency to tune into from being through the dark. This is not about all light all the time. This
No.
is not, it's
You-
actually dangerous. So
yeah.
teach spiritual bypassing. Let's talk about spiritual
Oh,
bypassing
Lordy.
as a, yeah, because people don't know. It's really innocent, they just don't
Yeah.
know. Like, speak into spiritual bypassing because that could lead us to a really big breakdown, probably.
Probably. What I'll say, because I'll kind of go back to what you were just saying about, bliss and darkness, and there's an ancient, it's the paradox of both. Well, it take grief. You would never know grief if you didn't know love,
Correct. Or
and
the
so
light without the dark. It's so true.
I know we're trying to break down a lot of binaries, in humanity right now, and yet there's some that, like, the Hermetic principle. So I'll get really super geeky weeky. The 7 Hermetic principles is really the
Okay.
ancient methodology of looking at what manifestation truly is, and one of the universal Hermetic laws, really is about the continuum and the paradox of things. And
Yes.
so you can only go so far into the light before you come into the dark. I mean, there's a lot of parables around this.
Yes.
So the spiritual bypass, we've been talking about this on the herbalism side of things too. Social media is great. It connects people, helps us, a lot of us in our businesses. Hopefully most of us are using it to share wisdom and good
Okay. Right.
information, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of dark side out there right
Right.
now too. And So we're being sold the love and light, and um, the dark is bad and evil. Now that whole conversation right there, dark is bad and evil, goes back to the beginning
Yeah.
of organized religion. Well, even further back, truthfully, if you
Mhm.
really want to go there, it goes back to, some of our ancient societies that, prior to patriarchy stepping in, where we honored the chthonic, we honored the dark. We honored that the
Yes.
dark is born out of, or that the light is born out of the dark. There's chaos theory if you're going up into
Yes.
the cosmos and understanding that principle.
Mhm.
So it's been written about in the ancient traditions
Yes.
for thousands and thousands of years, that there is as much honor in the dark spaces as there is in the light spaces, and you won't have one without the other. And you can trust, I mean, that's what's funny. You can trust that the moon's going to go dark at one day of the month, and then it's going to come around and it's going to go through its cycles. And
I
shoot,
mean,
well,
just
we're
this.
all gone if that stops happening, right? Or
There's as it's so important, Dean. I want to pause you here and really make sure this is coming through. Is that it's a judgment that when we're sad or there's a breakdown that it's bad and it needs to end and it's not a part of the plan and we got to get back. Just that alone is resistance. And to
Mm,
understand that the dark is part of the light, it's a part of the journey of the soul and as essential and as beautiful, actually, as
yes.
the light. Just that. I mean, just that when you're in it, to just be in it from that awareness, like, oh, here we go.
Mm,
I'm fucking human and I'm in it and I'm
right.
uncomfortable. And where do I need, how can I meet myself? What am I feeling? And what's the opportunity? Where does my soul want to go? What am I resisting? Like, it just changes it. It's less gnarly in a way.
Yeah, well, you're the cosmic joke is by paying attention to it, you're shedding light on it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, it's not going to stay in this murky place. Now, sometimes a messy middle underworld being in there could take months. It could,
Yeah.
I do counsel people, look, if it's going way long, it might be time to, work with a mental health professional,
Yeah.
what have you. But um I always say, to my soul sisters, and if I know I'm kind of like, I know I'm going into the darks
Yeah.
nowadays, I usually know, but not always.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
stuff happens when it happens.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, I'm here, I'm going to hold the lantern so you don't pack your bags and get too comfortable down there, because some people love to be there too for extended period of time. It's like a warm
Yeah.
cocoon, and they don't ever have to come into
Yeah.
the light and share their gifts with the world. So I see that part a lot
Right.
as well.
Right.
So it's kind of a
I
both and.
So spiritual bypassing specifically is when we use the lingo and the spiritual concepts,
Yeah.
um, not in the most rooted way. I almost say irresponsibly, but a lot of people do this very innocently. Like they don't know
Yeah,
they're doing
sure.
it. And it's a way to be like, oh, like toxic positivity. Like, oh,
Yes.
just light and love and blessings. And I'm just going to,
Hmm.
they don't want to go in and meet it to be able to excavate and meet themselves more deeply and
Sure.
evolve. And so it builds and probably it becomes it has become a bigger catastrophic event or, more attention grabbing event
Hmm.
because it's been bypassed. So spiritual bypassing is like using spiritual terms, positivity to mask. What would you say here? To mask like the
Truth.
feeling, the truth. How about
Truth,
that?
the feeling. And I
Uh-huh.
will say this, where I kind of get up about it is, and this happens within spiritual teacher circles. So I'm actually super discerning with who I hang out with in that realm too, because
Yeah.
I see a lot of judgment from the love and light sort of camp, in that it's like, well, I'm not going to, and I've seen it time and again, I'm not going to surround myself with anybody who isn't positive all the time.
Mm, mm, mm.
Or I've had people say they're empaths, and oh, like they said it literally to me.
Mhm, mhm,
Oh, I can feel your dark energy. And that's where I have to turn around
mhm,
and say, no, 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 you don't understand. Like, and
mhm,
it was the setting that
mhm,
this related to, but I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm sitting in this space holding protective energy
mhm,
right
mhm,
now, because
mhm,
they were in my space and there was a bunch of
mhm,
people work doing some healing work. And I was like,
mhm,
no, 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 this is you,
mhm,
you misunderstand protection from
mhm,
dark
mhm,
energy. And
mhm.
so I find that people, we do have to trust our intuition, but I think when people first start accessing it, um, they can get some big messages and make some judgments.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And I'm a second chance kind of gal, so even I can feel stuff in a room. I can feel when energy's out of coherence. I'm usually very good at bringing it back. Grocery store during COVID, I never had any problems because I made sure that energy was in coherence the second I walked in that door through love. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that this isn't light. It was through
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
But it's but I also know that I nor my intuition is infallible.
Yeah.
So I might get a vibe off of somebody, but I'm always going to give them a second chance or
Mm-hmm.
more to prove me
Mm-hmm.
wrong one way or
Mm-hmm.
the other,
But you
you
note
know.
it, right?
But
You
I also
note it.
know
Yeah.
danger too. Like danger's
Sure.
not getting through here, but somebody I'm on the fence, it's like, oh, okay, that was my first hit off of them. But I'm not going to write them off as some dark energy. In fact, energy is neutral. It's not good or bad.
Right.
And that I think happens out there in the worlds too. So that's where that spiritual bypassing tends to
Okay.
come from, I think, is that too many people are selling love and light, literally selling it from a
Yeah.
financial standpoint,
Yeah.
and really there's darkness underneath it.
I think it's just a really beautiful thing to drop into this conversation because, again,
Mhm.
the intention of this conversation is to bring awareness to these moments, the potency and the power of these moments, and
Yeah.
really navigating them may look different than you think. You may just think you're supposed to keep it up here. And actually, what we're saying, as two very experienced people having gone through this, is you have to go into it in a way. You have to stay
Right.
really resourced, right?
Hmm.
But meeting what you feel, creating the time to be with the feelings and letting yourself be moved by them and curious about them
Yeah.
and not being attached to an outcome, really asking yourself, where am I unwilling to go and why, and what if I can
Hmm.
unlock all the doors, and what is that,
Yeah.
how does this now feel, how did I just free myself, how is this happening for me, what does the divine order, like, what is the gift in this,
Yeah.
what is the soul gift
Right.
in this if I'm truly believing this is happening for me. And so I think those are, I mean, these are like really big, juicy concepts, but
They
like,
are.
you know, things you would share with someone going through. We've hit a lot of beautiful ones, and I think we're wrapping
I
soon, but I just
do.
want
I
to see
do.
where you're at with it. Yeah.
Well, I think because I'm still not sure if I got to what you were trying to ask me, but this whole, I mean, we get information from, for first of all, we always want to say the divine's up there somewhere. And from an animist perspective and a pantheist perspective, the divine is up there, down there, around here, in here, and everywhere.
Yes. Agreed.
And then, of
We
course,
like to think of it. Yeah. But
we
it's
are
actually a
nature.
360 experience.
We're all going to go back to the dirt nap,
Uh-huh.
regardless of whether we're four-legged, a plant, a two-legged, whatever it is. So, but while we're in this particular body at this particular time, we're like the tree.
Yeah.
We're the as above, so below. We're the conduit through the middle. So, yes, go up into the cosmos or however to get information from maybe a higher source. But then, and I go back to the shaman going into, do their journeys. And then we're running it through this energy system to then bring it out into the world and ground it down. So we get energy from the ground up so that we
Mhm.
can stay stable enough
Yes.
to
Yes.
get this information from wherever our
Mhm.
source is and give it as a
Yes.
gift.
Yes.
And that gift can sometimes be somebody witnessing you in your hot mess. So that's another thing I want to say. We're here to walk each other home. So
Mhm.
when we don't allow others into our space to be with us when we're in our messes, it's kind of like when somebody says, "Do you need anything? Do you need any help?" And we always want to say, "No, no, 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 no." But what you're actually doing is a disservice to that person's generosity and soul because they
Wow.
haven't been
True.
there. Again, it's reciprocity.
Yeah.
So to hide those truths about yourself, I mean, some things are very personal. You need to do it alone until you share it or whatever. But to fully hide them means what you're sharing with the world is not necessarily your truth. And we love each other when we really know each other in our truths, and we don't have to verbalize that necessarily, but that's an energetic thing.
It's intimacy. Vulnerability breeds intimacy. So
And
many
to
people
me,
like
I
I don't
see.
I don't have, but I want like close friends. I want like really close friends. And like they don't, it's like, well, that then you have to be vulnerable. Like the more
Hmm.
vulnerable you are, and discerning where that vulnerability is
Sure. Oh, yeah,
warranted and feels safe.
absolutely.
But that breeds intimacy. I think that's another beautiful thing to share. I like that, knowing when it is time to share and say, yes, I actually need some help. And or I do, but I don't even know what to ask for. I don't even know what to
Right.
tell you, but I'm really not okay.
Yeah, and that's true
And
with the cancer journey, and that I coach people
right.
when they're going through it because I'm like, everybody's going to ask you what you need. And
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, you are not going to know from one
Yeah.
moment to the next. So you have to have your crew of people willing to pick up the phone, like, or get the text, because they might ask you today and you will have no idea. And tomorrow
Right.
you might know what you need. And
Right.
it's just it's you want to talk about just not every moment being different with what you're sitting with. That's what the journey probably teaches you more than anything else. So it's this is just, I could talk all day and more about
There's
this for sure.
I know, and there's
We
so many
touched on some big
avenues.
stuff.
We did, I think we did actually, and I think it was a good way of touching into things we could have really deep dove into more, just to share with the audience that there is so much here and this is a known experience and you're not alone in it and it's not happening to you. You're not a victim of it. It's literally a gift. It's full of potential. And it's how do we meet it? How do we operate within it? Are we trying to control it? Are we surrendering to it? Are we giving it space to be met? Are we giving ourselves space to hear? What do I know? What do I feel? Are we listening to the nudges so it doesn't have to become a spiritual two by four that has to be
Right.
very attention grabbing and and yeah, a big deal like that. And are we can we meet the emotions? And sometimes just being with it and being curious about it can start to move things. And so it's all part of the beauty
Yeah,
is the bottom line.
it's true.
And if we stay in a state of victimhood, like let's say, with I'm just gonna use my husband and I, it's the first thing that came to mind, you know, I had to make the call, but he didn't go victim. He could have gone victim and just hated me because I made the call and then blamed me, and he would have
Sure.
gotten nothing out of it on a soul level. He would have
Right.
stayed vibrationally in that victim blaming energy. It's so tempting because if you're wrong, what does that make me? That makes me right. And that feels really fucking good.
And we
Oh, we
love that.
love
That's
it.
part of the problem in the collective right now. I mean, and it's literally how our brains are wired.
Yes.
We want to be proven right, and we
Right.
will not argue with a stranger on the internet about politics just to hope that somebody, like, surrenders and says, "Yes, you're right." Well, how often does that
It's especially
actually
online, it's
happen?
never going to happen. And so I commend him so deeply for not going victim and taking the opportunity to be like, well, I got a lot going on right here
Hmm.
with us not being together. And he took the opportunity
Good.
and met his own pain. And so the victim and the blaming just I want to put that in to just check in because it's like it's indulgent. It feels really good in the moment, but you're getting nowhere. You're actually
Yeah.
digging deeper when we're
Right.
just it happened to me versus it's happening for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that story situation. So you're the author of yours, he's the author of his. He could have taken it that way. But in this case, what I sense is your choice to do that was his cosmic two by four. And then he had a choice to either go do the work or not do the work. And
For
that's
real.
all of us. And
For
if he
real.
didn't, you would have went wherever you needed to go to continue
Yes.
to write your story. You hoped and wished that the
Yes.
story would reemerge together, but you surrendered and had the courage to say, and if it doesn't, okay, I'm going to be okay.
So
And I
much
think that's
courage.
the biggest thing. I'm going to be okay. And then
There it
when
is.
those
To
moments,
find that. Hmm.
yeah, that present themselves, whether it's from an external cosmic two by four, like you're the one on the receiving end of the breakup, whatever it is. And it's like, well, okay, what choice point am I at in this moment? And that's another small practice of what is the most empowering choice I can make right now. And that's a moment to moment thing. So, like, yeah,
It's powerful. And I want to highlight what you just said. In whatever every situation's so different. But in it, if you're really suffering, I bet you there's one outcome that you are convinced if it happens, you're not going to be okay. And
yes.
and the work is going through the process until you may not like it, but to get to the point of I can find peace in
Yep.
that outcome. It's
Yep.
not, I would not choose it for the world, but I know I'll breathe and I will have peace. I'll be okay.
Yep.
And that's the freedom. I think that might be for me, the centerest thread of this breakdown process is where do you think you can't, and finding a way that you can
Hmm.
exist in that reality. It now nothing's got the power over you.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, like we'll
So,
all be okay too, even with all the collective. I mean, humanity's
woo,
gonna, well, we're either gonna be gone or
yeah.
we're gonna be okay.
Either way, we're
And there's
okay.
kind of not an in between, at least over, long eonic periods of time. But yeah, I think that was the cancer thing too. It was like in the beginning when you don't know exactly what the diagnose, what the protocol is gonna
Unknown.
end up being.
Totally.
I had it, okay, I'm going to be okay if I lose my hair. I'm going to be okay if I lose my breast. Neither of those things ended up happening, but
But
I
that's
had to run
exactly what
those
we're saying.
scenarios.
That's exactly what we're saying. To get to those points, and then you can just let the divine work its plan, and you don't have to be suffering and knowing it's all. Yeah, I love it. Dina,
Ah, so
juicy
awesome.
girl.
So much
We
fun.
this was some we had
Mhm.
to get in, to get into the underworld and to hold that energy and to bring the light into the dark. It's I want to thank you for the work you do for the world in the world. I want to thank
Thank
you
you.
for your time in the Bliss Lab with me. I will put your links in the show notes. I know you're running an apothecary now,
I am.
and you have one-on-one mentoring with
Hmm.
women and maybe even some group work. I know you're always into something new and
Oh yes, I get,
evolving.
yeah.
I
I
love
am. I
it.
am a bit on the go. It is hard, and it's hard for me to sit in stillness because my nature is
Ah,
a lot of curiosity, a lot of
what are we learning? What are we doing?
movement, and that's
Yeah.
natural for me. And that's also, don't judge yourself for not being able to sit in meditation for an hour. We're not all built to do that.
No, no. So I treasured our time here. I think that this transmission was really beautiful, and my
Me too.
intention is that it reaches some people who really could use some of these wisdom
So
pearls that have come through, and that they're not alone, and that there's beauty in everything. There's light in the dark. So, with that, I will say goodbye, and until next time, everyone.
great. Thank you.
Bye, honey.
Bye bye.